following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the TFangy coming to you with a review of a Transformers figure that I was originally going to pass on, but after seeing a lot of positive reviews on it here on YouTube, and seeing it at my local Target store, I figured why not get it. And so, here he is, the Transformers Legacy Deluxe Class Wave 2 figure of Prime Knock-Out. So this is the first version of the Prime version of Knock-Out that we've gotten since the Prime line of Transformers action figures ended back in 2013 with the Beast Hunters line. Now I apologize, I'm going to announce it right here at the start of the review. I do still have the original Deluxe Class Prime Knock-Out action figure in my Transformers collection, but unfortunately I cannot remember where I put it, so I unfortunately will not be bringing it out for a size comparison here with Knock-Out out. So for those of you who are looking forward to that, I apologize for not having that figure found out in time for the review. But here's Knock-Out inside his box, and I dislike the open window packaging. There's a image there of his vehicle mode. You've got some images here of Knock-Out on the side of his box. You've got close-up of Knock-Out's head, and then you've got the zoomed out image of the same artwork where he's in one hand he's wielding his trident spear staff, which is really cool. Here on this side of the box, you've got the artwork for the poster image for the Legacy line, the Decepticon side of it. On the top of the box, you've got the Legacy logo. And coming around here to the back of the box, you've got Knock-Out in his robot mode and in his vehicle mode, and he transforms back and forth between both modes in 18 steps. And for those of you guys who've been collecting Transformers figures since it's the year 2021, you might think, why does Knock-Out look a little familiar to me? That's because, unlike the previous two figures from the Transformers Prime series that have been given action figures here in the Legacy line, which were released in Wave 1, Deluxe Class Prime RC and Voyager Class Prime Bulkhead, unlike those two figures, Knock-Out here is not an original mold. He is a extensive retool of the Transformers Studio Series 1986 movie Jazz figure. So, because of that, and along with the overall look that Knock-Out has here, the number of Transformers fans and collectors who don't really enjoy Legacy Knock-Out, and the number of Transformers fans and collectors that do enjoy Legacy Knock-Out, those who hate the idea that he's not an original mold and he's a retool of Jazz, those who enjoy the figure despite him being a retool of Jazz, the number of Transformers fans and collectors who both enjoy and do not enjoy the Legacy Knock-Out figure here is pretty evened out. So, as far as whether he's a fantastic figure or a terrible Transformers figure, surprisingly from the reactions I've seen from the Transformers community, Legacy Prime Knock-Out is right in the middle. So basically, he's a mediocre level of a Transformers figure. So that's pretty much all there is to say about it. So let's get him out of his box and take a close look at him in his robot mode. Alright, and here's Knock-Out out of his box, transformed into his robot mode, and unfortunately, if you have Studio Series 86 Jazz, then Knock-Out is going to feel the exact same way. Half his joints are loose, the other half are kind of loose, kind of not, and the knees especially are really weak, and that's a problem that my copy of Studio Series 86 Jazz has. It's having very weak knee and hip joints, and especially in robot mode. So for those of you guys wondering what I was staring at, I was in fact staring at Jazz. So for a quick size comparison, here is Knock-Out next to the figure he's retooled from. So here's Studio Series 86 Jazz. One thing they did not change sculpting wise was the shins, the lower legs. Legs are the exact same. They did give Knock-Out new feet, and he does have new side panels here, even though the actual wheels themselves are they the same? Yeah, they're the exact same wheels as well. Exact same wheels, just Knock-Out has gold hubcaps where Jazz's are painted silver. The thighs are different sculpting, and then the pelvis is the same. The pelvis is the same sculpt, the waist piece, even the shoulders shoulders are the same. Aim, and the lower arms are different sculpted parts, but the fists are the same as well. I believe the windshields are different sculpting as well. And also, pretty much half the parts on Knockout are new sculpting, but the other half is mold mates with Jazz, so not much of a difference there. Now, one thing to note about Knockout is that this is the official configuration for his backpack, where the back window and the doors of his vehicle mode are supposed to swing up inside there, but unfortunately, he's similar to Jazz, folding it all in, and then when you fold it all in and then you try to fold it back out afterward, the panels rub up against each other, and it feels like something's going to break. So unfortunately, the official configuration for Knockout's backpack is not the greatest, so you're left with one of two options to avoid breakage. You can either leave the back window folded down like that and give Knockout somewhat of a cape-looking backpack, or if you wanted to leave the fold the windscreen inside under the hood, under the roof of the vehicle mode, then the next best option to avoid breakage is to do what I do with my copy of Studio Series 86 Jazz, where you leave the doors folded out to the side. Neither of these alternate backpack configurations make Knockout look any better. But as I said, the official one, it feels like some parts might end up breaking off, and you do get plastic rubbing against plastic, so it's all personal preference which one you decide to do. I personally like this one better, where the doors are folded out to the side, even though it doesn't really make Knockout look like his original Prime figure. So here's one last size comparison with Jazz. And again, as I said, the other two figures from the Prime, characters from Transformers Prime that have been released in the Legacy line, which are Primer, C, and Bulkhead, they've been given brand new figures, and unfortunately there's no overlooking the fact that Knockout here, this new figure of him is a retool of Jazz, and it makes Knockout looks like he has Jazz's body type. It's not entirely accurate to his Prime version, but considering what Hasbro and Takara decided to do using the Jazz mold, I do think it came out to be a pretty nice looking version of Knockout. A lot of Transformers fans and collectors have pointed out that this isn't as skinny or slender as the original Prime Knockout action figure, and I am inclined to agree, but it is a nice look for Knockout to have, if I have to be honest. It makes it look like he went to the gym, worked out a while, and now he's more muscular than he was before. So pretty much the one part of Knockout that's new and distinct from Jazz is his trident spear weapon, which was the weapon he used in the Prime cartoon. Now, unlike the original spear that the original Prime Knockout figure had, in which it split into two halves and you had to insert it, or the upper and lower halves, into the actual fist, here on the new version for Legacy, and there's actually a 5mm post extension out from behind. Granted, it actually looks like he's holding a handle on the spear here rather than the spear itself, but I'm willing to forgive it because every time I would shove the spear on my original Prime Knockout figure, it felt like I was going to break the fist if I shoved the spear inside too quickly or used too much force. So I think that's a nice change here for Knockout's trident spear. You got you got a hexagon-shaped 5mm post on top. Then you've got a slightly smaller 3mm one there, so you can put different blast effects on Knockout spear weapon. Unfortunately, he does have 5mm posts here on his arms, which is also the same spot where his fists fold in. So the lower arms on Knockout are pretty hollow. But apart from that, and he does feel like a pretty solid looking figure despite the loose joints. So for articulation, Knockout's head is on a ball joint, so it can look left and right in 60 degrees. It can look up and down just ever so slightly, but that's primarily due to the fact that it's a ball joint rather than a swivel joint. The arms have the potential to go and rotate 360 degrees forward and backwards, but if you decide to leave the doors out like I did, it will hinder the arm articulation. The arms can go up that far at the shoulder joint, swivel joints in the bicep. Hinged elbows, no wrist articulation due to transformation. You do have a waist swivel, which was present on Jazz, so that's pretty great. The legs can only go out that far, so Knockout can't, unfortunately, do a full splits. But at the hip, the leg can go forward that far, it can go backwards that far, or depending again on how you have his backpack configured. If you're to swivel joints in the hips, but fresh out of the box, they're a little tight on my copy. Double jointed knees, but one of the joints is due to transformation. The feet can go downward at the toe, but that's primarily a transformation joint. And you have ankle rockers if you want to get knocked out into a sprawl-legged pose. So pretty decent amount of articulation for a deluxe class figure. But again, the knee joints on him, they aren't as loose as they are on Studio Series 86 Jazz, but they're pretty loose enough that if you were to try and get Knockout into a action pose and then put him on a solid flat surface, he might fall down to the ground. So that's pretty much the only major gripe I have with Knockout, is how loose his joints are in robot mode. But we've looked at robot mode long enough, so let's get him armed and take a look at Knockout's alternate mode, see the differences and similarities between him and Jazz, and wrap up the review. Alright, so it took a little while to get all the panel sections lined up, but here is Legacy Prime Knockout in his vehicle mode, and I've seen in a couple of reviews where collectors said this is the mode that's the selling point here on Knockout, and I'm inclined to agree, because unlike robot mode where he looks like an evil version of Jazz, here in vehicle mode, Prime Knockout looks like Prime Knockout. This is the sports car that he transformed into in the Transformers Prime series, and its paint job here on the side of the vehicle mode is more accurate to Knockout's appearance in Transformers Prime than his original Prime figure had. And the hubcaps here are actually gold, whereas on the original Prime Knockout figure they were unpainted black plastic. The front bumper looks pretty great too, and the racing stripes here on the side of Knockout, which start off silver and then they end up becoming brownish towards the back of him. That is a more accurate racing stripe pattern than his original action figure from, well, I can't believe it was 10 years ago that the Prime action figures were released back in 2012. Now, on the original Prime Knockout figure, his silvery brown racing stripes actually look like splotches of mud on him, like he'd traveled off-road for a while. So it is nice to see the a more accurate paint job here on this new figure matching up to Knockout's animation model from the Transformers Prime cartoon series. And I will say this, transforming him from robot mode to vehicle mode, some of the panels sections, they were slightly more difficult to line up compared to Studio Series Jazz, and there were times where it felt like the car doors here on the sides were going to pop off. So just a word of warning from my experience, even though I've just transformed Knockout from robot mode to vehicle mode just one time. I'm right now, but it took just one time for me to realize that transforming Knockout is a slightly more difficult challenge than transforming Studio Series 86 Jazz. So, as far as weapon storage goes, you can either put the entire trident spear here on top of Knockout's roof. Unfortunately, there is no proper weapon storage, so just like the original Transformers Prime action figures, the only storage space for the weapons is to just attach them to any of the 5mm ports located here on Knockout. He does have two 5mm ports, the ones from the lower half of his robot mode arms down there, but there's literally only a hairline of clearance between the bottom of Knockout's wheels to a solid surface if you were to place him on there. So apart from placing the whole trident spear on top of Knockout's roof, the only other weapon storage is to pull the trident apart, or into two halves, and have them sit here on the sides of Knockout. Knockout. So unfortunately, that's another gripe I have with Knockout, apart from loose joints, is no proper weapon storage for him in vehicle mode, even though that is accurate to the original Prime action figure. It's a level of accuracy that I think would have been better if it hadn't been replicated here on the new figure. So for a size comparison in vehicle mode, here is Legacy Prime Knockout versus Studio Series 86 Jazz, the figure that he retooled from. And again, as I said, the shapes of the cars are different enough, and there's enough of a distinction that you can distinguish Knockout from Jazz, unlike Robot Mode. And so, for my final thoughts on Legacy Prime Knockout, do I recommend getting this figure and adding it to your collection? Absolutely, I do. I never got around to. I wanted to customize my original Prime Knockout figure by painting the hubcaps gold. So just having a figure of a deluxe class-sized figure of Knockout that actually has painted wheels on it, that is an instant approval for me. So yeah, even though he's just fresh out of the box, I'm really enjoying looking at Legacy Knockout. So yeah, despite Transformers fans being evenly divided, I hated at the reality that this latest version of Prime Knockout is a retool of the most recent action figure of Jazz to be released. I am in the category of fans who actually enjoy it, and I think it is a pretty decent looking action figure of Knockout overall. Also, I highly recommend you get this figure if you find it. For what I saw, when the Legacy Wave 2 figures were on the shelves at my local Target store, Wave 3 of the Legacy deluxe-sized figures are now in stock, but when Wave 2 was out and about, which was during the months of September and October of this year, Knockout was one of the Legacy Wave 2 figures that wasn't really sought after or compared to his wave mates such as Alita 1 or Stunticon on Wild Rider. But overall, I do enjoy how Knockout, his appearance, how he was designed, and I applaud Hasbro and Takara Tomy for taking the Studio Series 86 Jazz mold and using it a second time. I'm here on a pretty fantastic looking action figure for the Transformers Prime version of Knockout. Thank you guys all so much for watching. This has been the TFangy, and until next time, you guys stay safe, stay healthy, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.